All right. Does that make sense? That's all I thought on supply chain, right? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about funding. Now, the problem that you have with doing anything like this, of course, is we wanted to produce a robot, and we wanted to produce it for less than $500, so that we could sell it for less than $1,000. And that's really kind of hard if you're only producing a small number. This is Loki. This is our, as you know, we've got two robots. We've got Magni, which is the big robot, and Loki, which is our small robot, the little guy. This is what the economies of scale look like for Loki, right? We're going to be crowdfunding Loki at about $119, which is roughly what it costs. It's basically the cost price if you don't produce very many units. But as you produce more units, the price drops per unit, right? You're able to make volume purchases of parts. The contract manufacturers' setup charges tend to get amortized over more units, and so your cost per unit drops. It's actually a pretty terrific price that we negotiated with those guys, right? It's close to the BOM cost. But you need lots of volume in order to do this, which is why we're crowdfunding it, right? Because for us to be able to supply you guys with robots at sort of prices like this, our pricing is pretty simple. What would it cost you to produce one of these things? In fact, for Magni, it's worse than that. What would it cost you to produce 10 of these things or 20 of these things, roughly, is what our pricing is going to be. And we rely on the fact that we're going to get a large volume of orders through to be able to supply these things at terrific prices, because that's what we wanted to do, right? So you need volume. That's the first thing. The second thing is, generally, this is how pricing terms work with your contract manufacturers. If you're new and you haven't developed a supplier relationship, they don't know who you are, and you're purchasing in relatively small volumes, they're going to expect you to pay 100% of the component purchases up front, and they're going to expect you to pay the contract manufacturer up front. And then you will wait for your parts, then you pay a load of logistics, and then maybe you're going to have to pay to store the inventory. And that's typically how you start out, right? Over time, if you know these guys, and we've been working with some of our guys now for some time as we built this thing, maybe they'll cut you a bit of a break and they'll let you pay for the components in the CM a little bit after you place the order, which we are currently at with our suppliers. If they know you and they trust you, then they might allow you to go maybe to here or even to here. And we've actually got them to quote us terms here if we produce a large order, which means that we pay about 30% up front and then the rest on delivery. But they will only do that if they've known you for many years and you're going to put a large volume order through them. And if we can get down here, our cash conversion cycle drops, and that means that we can supply robots more quickly to people, and we can do so with less working capital, which obviously is what we're going to try to do because we're super lean. I mean, we are like, 3% body fat lean at the moment, right? So yeah, and that's kind of where we're going to go. So yeah, so contractual terms tend to improve the longer your relationship, the longer the time you've had a relationship with your suppliers, and also it improves if you can put in a volume order. So if you think about it, you need volume, you need upfront funding, and I don't need to tell you guys about how important developing a community is. You need all of those three things, hence crowdfunding, right? And that's why we're crowdfunding this. If people don't like what we've got, if people don't want it, we absolutely can't do it. We have a fixed funding goal for our product, and our fixed funding goal is basically break even for us, right? And we hope that we get lots of support from the community and that we get lots of interest from the community and that we can exceed that goal. But if it's below our fixed funding limit, we simply can't produce these things at the prices that we're offering, right? So yeah. Okay, so crowdfunding. And of course that means that we have Indiegogo on March the 10th, so I do hope that you will all come and support us. So yeah. Okay. And that's why we went for crowdfunding, because we wanted these three things. We needed volume, we needed upfront funding, we needed community development. And those are the things that we wanted. Okay, so key points to think about with crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is great because if it works, you get these three things. You get a community inbuilt, you get upfront funding, and you get volume. All of which you need in order to be able to produce something like this in any kind of reasonable way. You need to try to think about how to acquire your prospects before day one. So really, for a successful crowdfunding campaign, you need about 30% of your goal to be achieved on day one. Is kind of what you want. Now, if you're going to acquire all of that through online advertising, it's going to cost you about 50 cents to $2 per email collected. So per person that you have who might be a prospect, it's going to cost you about this much. Now, only about 5% of these people are going to convert. So you can see that your cost to acquire a customer is going to be between, it's going to be in the sort of order of $5 to $20 per person before day one, if you do it all through online advertising. But building your community is the point. Building a community is kind of the point. Now, crowdfunding, it was a pretty good gig back in 2014, 2015. Things have changed a little bit. There have been a lot of people who've come out who either failed because they didn't understand some of the challenges of doing a hardware product. They were either very late, or frankly, because they were fraudulent. Does anybody know a fraudulent crowdfunding campaign? Right? So there were a lot of people who've come up with failed, late, or fraudulent crowdfunding campaigns, and that's caused people to be more wary. So it's much harder to get journalists interested unless the campaign looks like it's going to be a blockbuster. The major platforms really do not drive traffic to campaigns anymore. It used to be that you'd put your campaign on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and you'd expect about 30% of your traffic just to come from people who are surfing Kickstarter and Indiegogo. That's no longer the case. And then also be wary of promises by crowdfunding organizations to help you. I will not mention any names. Just be a little bit careful, because there are lots of people out there who are trying to claim they can help you, but not all of them can. Right?
What are their initials then?
Well, Indiegogo promised us, oh yeah, we're going to do all kinds of PR help and so forth, and it's been a bit lack. It's been a bit below expectations, to be honest. Right?
What do you mean by the Kickstarter and Indiegogo don't drive traffic to campaigns?
Used to be you put your campaign on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. You'd ask all of your friends to sign up. They'd sign up. You'd get maybe 10, 20% of your traffic, 10, 20% of the people, 10 to 20% of the people that went to your campaign and bought something in your campaign would be friends and family. Maybe 25 to 30% would come from press. And you'd expect about 30% of your traffic to come organically from Kickstarter and Indiegogo itself. So people would surf on Indiegogo, oh, that's a great project, I need to support that, yes. Right? These days, that kind of traffic, the traffic that was just people surfing on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, just is not as high as it once was.
Okay, it's because there's not as much traffic surfing these websites.
That's right. People are not surfing the website as much. You have a small number of super backers, the guys who back thousands of projects. They come in and support it, but the sort of interested parties who used to surf the sites before don't seem to be surfing it as quite as much. Or there are just so many more projects now that each one gets less attention. So the environment is less favorable, but we still feel good about crowdfunding, and we still are excited by our campaign. It's going to happen on March 10th. And because for these reasons, the need for volume, upfront funding, and community development. So yeah, and I can tell you,